this doesn't change, whatever the laws are, is the consequences in terms of the liabilities and how those things are dealt with. So you and I have spoken about this before, and we mentioned it earlier in the podcast. Nobody wants a lawyer; they just want a good problem solver. So the way I look at these things is there's no law that says you can and can't do something. Every law just says there's a consequence for doing something, right? There's no law that says you can't break the speed limit. It says you break the speed limit, you get penalty points or fine, and I'll put my hand up to
So
that
you
one.
can, but you're going to get.
So the
your wrist
question is
slapped.
now, what are the consequences? So it's good to know that, because if you look at it, so let's say I have a client that has an employee that's been there for 20 years, absolute nightmare. They've not done any processes, no procedures, whatnot, and they said, "Tosh, we've had enough."
Wait, slow down. So an employee, you've had them for 20 years.
Yep.
And they've become a nightmare. They haven't been a nightmare for 20
Maybe
years.
they've been a nightmare, but maybe they've been the top earner, or maybe they let things slide for whatever reason, but it's just now got out
You've
of
kept
hand,
your
and now
mouth
they
shut
want to deal
because
with
they
it.
bring in the money.
Yeah, for whatever reason. Yeah, that's right. Or they didn't want the confrontation. They didn't want the hassle with the situation.
And they let it run for 20 years.
I'm making the scenario, but it's not.
Go
it's
on,
not,
yeah.
it's not,
Yeah, I
it's
know,
Not,
but-
it's not uncommon that it's 10 years, for example.
Okay.
So let's say that they've got a length of service and they now want to get rid of them. Well, the first thing to look at is what's the consequences of getting rid of them. Not step one, verbal warning, first written warning, final written warning, and so forth. I'm not saying you have to go down that route, but if we're going to give any kind of service to our clients, they've got to know what their options are. You can follow the textbook route, or you can follow a shortcut. And actually, there's a nice way to fire people, believe it or not. So the approach that I look at is if you want to get rid of somebody, they're entitled to their annual salary, so up to 1 year's pay, but it's subject to their ability to get another job. That's the key part of that sentence in the liability. Subject to their ability to get another job. So before we even start the process, what do you think we do?
Tell me.
We get a recruitment agent and we get them another job. How long will it take this person? Here's the CV. Here's what their skills are. This is what they've been doing with us. It doesn't have to be unpleasant. Sometimes things just don't work out.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to get very personal, which often happens. And you know what? You and John, whoever's talking to John, John knows the writings on the wall. It's not been working out for a long time. It's a welcome way to respectfully part ways. It doesn't have to be anything that's not done in a dignified manner. And you can agree terms for those departure, right? References, so nobody's looking over their shoulder. And you walk them into another job. Here's the recruitment agent. Get in touch with them. It also minimises the liability. So you know what we'll do, John? We'll give you a 2 months pay, because that's how long it's going to take you to get another job. We're going to give you a good reference anyway. So you bridge the gap. And if you went to a tribunal, that's all you're going to get anyway, your ability to get another job. So a lot of it is just to how you say things. I mentioned this right at the beginning. How you say, what to say. And in an employee's point of view, it might be, well, I know my rights and I'm entitled, and you can't do this to me. And it becomes very emotive. They're thinking about the mortgage, kids, whatever expenses they've got. Well, if you just address that quite sensibly, and they don't do it in the first meeting, but maybe the second or third, they start to see the way of it going. So you can fire people nicely. So my point here is, whatever the laws or the scaremongering that's going out there, the solutions aren't different. There's still ways to get around it. I don't mean to get away with discrimination or with unfair dismissals. I'm saying there's a way to have a solution that meets both parties' needs. And there's another change in the law that's coming up that I absolutely hate.